Audio. 1, 3, 2, 1. Click. You're now live.
We are now live. Let's see if my hands warm up enough to play. I had the heater over there and not over here. I wonder what she'll be doing. It's called I Will Lift. Sing unto my King. I will lift my voice and sing unto my King. And He will put a new song deep into my heart. And I lift my voice and sing unto my King. I lift my hands. I will lift my hands in praise unto my Lord. I will lift my praise unto my Lord, and He will put a new strain deep into my heart when I lift my hands in praise unto my Lord. For He alone is worthy, and He alone deserves my praise. He alone is faithful and just, righteous in all His ways. He is righteous in all His ways. I will lift my feet and dance unto my God. I will lift my feet and dance unto my God. And He will put a new song deep into my heart when I lift my feet and dance unto my God. For He alone is worthy. He alone deserves my praise. He alone is faithful and just, righteous in all His ways. He is righteous in all His ways. For He alone is worthy. He alone deserves my praise. He alone is faithful and just, righteous in all His ways. He is righteous in all His ways. Today is the Sabbath of Song, Shabbat Shirah, Sabbath of Song, because today is the day we read of the first songs, the Song of Moses, the Song of Miriam, and the Song of the people after they crossed the river, crossed the Red Sea, and rain. And that's kind of why this song kind of hit me. Is this we need to do this one, you know? But we haven't done it for a long time. But it talks about what happens when we do what God demands us to do in our praise and worship. I will lift my voice and sing unto my King. I will lift my voice and sing unto my King. And He will put a new song deep into my heart when I lift my voice and sing unto my King. Lift my hands. I will lift my hands in praise unto my Lord. I will lift my hands in praise unto my Lord. And He will put a new strength deep into my heart when I lift my hands in praise unto my Lord. He alone is worthy. For He alone is worthy. He dance unto my God. I will lift my feet and dance unto my God. And He will put a new joy deep into my heart. I will lift my feet and dance unto my God. For He alone is worthy. He alone deserves my praise. He alone is faithful and just, righteous in all His ways. He is righteous in all His ways. For He alone is worthy. He alone deserves my praise. He alone is faithful and just, righteous in all His ways. He is righteous in all His ways. For He alone is worthy. He alone deserves my praise. He alone is faithful and just, righteous in all His ways. He is righteous in all His ways. He's good. It is good to praise the Lord and make music to your name, O God Most High, to proclaim your love and faithfulness all the day and through the night. It is good to praise the Lord and make music to your name, O God Most High, to proclaim your love and faithfulness all the day and through the night. La 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 May I dwell in your woods, O Lord, and to flourish like the trees of Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai, and to live forevermore. La 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 la. Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. Yes, I worship Your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass, whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. You're rich in love and You're slow to anger. Your name is great and Your heart is kind. For all Thy goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I'll worship Your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come, still my soul will sing Your praises unending. 10,000 years and forever, Lord. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. Yes, I worship Your holy name. Oh, I worship Your holy name. Yes, I worship Your holy name. God of restoration. You are the God of hope. You are the God of justice. You are the God of healing. You are the God who hears. You are the God of hope. You are the God of justice. You are the God of healing. You are
are the God who hears. Oh, as we worship Him and take a righteous stand. For the Lord will rise with healing in His wings. To the God of restoration now we sing. You are the God of hope. You are the God of justice. You are the God of healing, the only God who hears. You are the God of hope. You are the God of justice. You are the God of healing. You are the God who hears. Oh, hallelujah. As we worship Him and take a righteous stand. For the Lord will rise with healing in His wings. To the God of restoration we now sing. Holy, holy, righteous.
sweet. To the God of restoration we now sing. Holy,
as we worship Him and take our righteous stand.
That the Lord will rise with healing in His wings.
To the God of restoration we now sing.
You are the God of hope.
You are the God of
justice.
You are the God of healing, the only God who hears.
Abba Father, you are the only God who hears. You are the only God who hears and answers with relief. Abba Father, we trust you. We honor you. We know that you are a God of deliverance. We worship you for that deliverance today in this house.
Please rise for the sounding of the shofar. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Baruch Shem Kavod Malkuto Leolom Vayet. Blessed be the name of the glory of His kingdom, forever and ever. V'hafta et Adonai Elohecha b'chor lavavecha uv'kor nafshecha uv'kor meodecha. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. V'hayu hadvarim hayalar asher enoki mitzvaka hayom ala vaveka. And these words which I command you today shall be upon your heart. Vishanantam levanecha v'debarta bam bevshekta bevtecha uvletka v'erek uvshakbeka uvkamecha. You shall teach them thoroughly to your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk on the road, when you lie down, and when you rise. Ukshatam leolot agedeka v'hayu letotafot bin inecha. You shall bind them as a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for a reminder between your eyes. Uktavtam el muzozot beteka uvishareka. And you shall write them upon the doorposts of your house and upon your gate.
מלך העולם, אשר קרשנו בתורתך, ונתן לנו את אור החיים, וישוע משכנו, שר השלום.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified your Torah, and has given us the light of life in Jesus our Messiah, the Prince of Peace.
Let the weight of your glory. Spirit of the sovereign Lord,
Come and make your presence known, reveal the glory of the living God. Spirit of the sovereign Lord, come and make your presence known, reveal the glory of the living God. Let the weight of your glory cover us. Let the life of your river flow. Let the truth of your kingdom reign in us. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory fall. Spirit of the sovereign Lord, come and make your presence known, reveal the glory of the living God. Spirit of the sovereign Lord, come and make your presence known, reveal the glory of the living God. Let the weight of your glory cover us. Let the life of your river flow. Let the truth of your kingdom reign in us. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory fall. And we do not seek your hand, we only seek your face. We want to know you, we want to see you reveal your glory in this place. Let the weight of your glory cover us. Let the life of your river flow. Let the truth of your kingdom reign in us. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory fall. Spirit of the sovereign Lord, come and make your presence known, reveal the glory of the living God. Spirit of the sovereign Lord, come and make your presence known, reveal the glory of the living God. Let the weight of your glory cover us. Let the life of your river flow. Let the truth of your kingdom reign in us. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory fall. And we do not seek
your glory in this place. Let the weight of your glory cover us. Let the life of your kingdom flow. Let the truth of your kingdom reign in us. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory fall. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory Blessed be your name, glorious kingdom come. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. Majesty too great to dwell in temples made of stone. You have chosen hearts to flesh to make your glory known. Let your kingdom come, let your will be done. This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. It's called breathe, I think. This is my daily bread.
This is my daily bread.
Your very word spoken to me. This is the air I breathe.
This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me.
This is my daily bread.
This is my daily bread. Your very
Words spoken to me.
and
I'm desperate for you. And
I'm lost without you.
and
I'm desperate for you. And I'm lost without you.
This is the air I breathe.
This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe.
Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread.
This is my daily bread. Your very word
spoken to me, and I'm desperate for you. And I'm lost without you. I'm desperate for you. I'm lost without you. I'm desperate for you. I'm lost without you. Word of God speaking. Finding myself
at a loss for words. And the funny thing is, it's okay.
the last thing I need is to be heard, but to hear what you would say. Word of God speak, would you pour down my rain, washing my eyes to see your majesty, to be still and know you're in this place. Please let me stay and rest in your holiness. Word of God speak. Finding myself at a loss for words, and the funny thing is, it's okay. The last thing I need is to be heard, but to hear what you would say. Word of God speak, pour down like rain, washing my eyes to see your majesty, to be still and know you're in this place. Please let me stay and rest in your holiness. Word of God speak, pour down like rain, washing my eyes to see your majesty, to be still and know you're in this place. Please let me stay and rest in your holiness. Word of God speak.
Sorry for not harmonizing. I really wanted to remember the man's voice when I heard this song. And I'm not a low, what's that, tremolo bass? I'm not a bass. And when I sing with him, I sing like you just sang. You know, on the radio, I'm all over on the upper side. And I miss you.
We come to your mountain, the hill of the Lord, where He would ascend and journey into your holy place, to feast in your presence and bring our devotion.
its praise, encountering the glory of your name, your throne of holiness, the wonders of your grace. We enter your sanctuary to minister at your holy throne, where thousands of angels joyfully sing. The mountain of the Lord towards your holy place, and every step is praise, encountering the glory of your name, your throne of holiness, the wonders of your grace. Come, let us worship, come, let us recognize what a sacred thing we do. Come, let us bow down, God, as we bring our hearts, let them please.
Today's reading begins in Exodus 13, verse 17. Now it came about, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, even though it was near. For God said, lest the people change their minds when they see war, and they return to Egypt. Hence God led the people around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea, and the sons of Israel went up in martial array from the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God shall surely take care of you, and you shall carry my bones from here with you. Then they set out from Succoth and camped in Etham on the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord was going before them in a pillar of cloud by day to lead them on the way, and in a pillar of fire by night to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. He did not take away the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, tell the sons of Israel to turn back and camp before Pihahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. You shall camp in front of Baal-zephon, opposite it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the sons of Israel, they are wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. Thus I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after them, and I will be honored through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. And they did so. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his servants had a change of heart toward the people, and they said, what is this we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us? So he made his chariot ready and took his people with him. And he took 600 select chariots, and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over all of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he chased after the sons of Israel, as the sons of Israel were going out boldly. Then the Egyptians chased after them with all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen, and his army, and they overtook them camping by the sea, beside Pi-hahiroth, in front of Baal-zephon. And as Pharaoh drew near, the sons of Israel looked, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they became very frightened. So the sons of Israel cried out to the Lord. And then they said to Moses, Is it because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you dealt with us in this way, bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. But Moses said to the people, do not fear. Stand by and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians, whom you have seen today, you will never see them again forever. The Lord will fight for you while you keep silent. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to go forward. And as for you, lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. And the sons of Israel shall go through the midst of the sea on dry land. And as for me, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, so that they will go in after them. And I will be honored through Pharaoh and all of his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. Then the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, when I am honored through Pharaoh, through his chariots and his horsemen." And the angel of God, who had been going before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. So it came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel, and there was the cloud along with the darkness, yet it gave light at night. Thus the one did not come near the other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord swept the sea back by a strong east wind at all night, and turned the sea into dry land, so the waters were divided. And the sons of Israel went through the midst of the sea on the dry land, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right and on their left. Then the Egyptians looked up. Then the Egyptians took up the pursuit, and all Pharaoh's horses, his chariot, and his horsemen went in after them into the midst of the sea. And it came about at the morning watch that the Lord looked down on the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud, and brought the army of the Egyptians into confusion. And he caused their chariot wheels to swerve, and he made them drive with difficulty. So the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from Israel, for the Lord is fighting for them against the Egyptians." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the waters may come back over the Egyptians, over their chariots and their horsemen." Over their chariots and their horsemen. So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal state at daybreak, while the Egyptians were fleeing right into it. Then the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen, even Pharaoh's entire army that had gone into the sea after them. Not even one of them remained. But the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. And when Israel saw the great power which the Lord had used against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Then Moses and the sons of Israel sang this song to the Lord and said, "I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will extol him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has cast into the sea, and the choicest of his officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deeps cover them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Thy right hand, O Lord, is majestic in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, shatters the enemy. And in the greatness of thine excellence, thou dost overthrow those who rise up against thee. Thou dost send forth thy burning anger, and it consumes them as chaff. And at the blast of thy nostrils the waters were piled up. The flowing waters stood up like a heap. The deeps were congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My desire shall be gratified against them. I will draw out my sword, my hand shall destroy them. Thou didst blow with thy wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like thee among the gods, O Lord? Who is like thee, majestic in holiness, awesome in praises, working wonders? Thou didst stretch out thy right hand. The earth swallowed them. In thy loving kindness thou hast led the people whom thou hast redeemed. In thy strength thou hast guided them to thy holy habitation. The peoples have heard, they tremble. Anguish has gripped the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chiefs of Edom were dismayed. The leaders of Moab, trembling, grips upon them. The leaders of Moab, trembling, grips them. All the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. Terror and dread fall upon them. By the greatness of thine arm they are motionless as stone, until the people pass over, O Lord, until the people pass over whom thou hast purchased. Thou wilt bring them and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for thy dwelling, the sanctuary, O Lord, which thy hands have established. The Lord shall reign forever and ever. For the horses of Pharaoh with chariots and his horsemen went into the sea, and the Lord brought back the waters of the sea upon them. But the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea. And Miriam the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took the timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dancing. And Miriam answered them, Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and his rider he has hurled into the sea. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore it was named Marah. So the people grumbled at Moses, saying, What shall we drink? Then he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, and he threw it into the waters, and the waters became sweet. There he made for them a statute and regulation, and there he tested them. And he said, If you will give earnest heed to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I have put on the Egyptians, for I, the Lord, am your healer. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 date palms, and they camped there beside the waters. Then they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after their departure from the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the sons of Israel said to them, Would that we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then the Lord said to Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them, whether or not they will walk in my instruction. And it will come about on the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as what they gather daily. So Moses and Aaron said to all the sons of Israel, At evening you will know that the Lord has brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, for he hears your grumbling against the Lord. And what are we that you grumble against us? And Moses said, This will happen when the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening, and bread to the full in the morning, for the Lord hears your grumblings, which you grumble against him. And what are we? Your grumblings are not against us, but against the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, Say to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, Come near before the Lord, for he has heard your grumblings. And it came about, as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the sons of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I have heard the grumblings of the sons of Israel. Speak to them, saying, At twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God. So it came about at evening that the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew evaporated, behold, on the surface of the wilderness there was a fine flake-like thing, fine as the frost on the ground. When the sons of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is this?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "It is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it every man as much as he should eat. You shall take an omer, a piece, according to the number of persons each of you has in his tent." And the sons of Israel did so, and some gathered much, and some little. When they measured it with an omer, he who had gathered much had no excess, and he who had gathered little had no lack. Every man gathered as much as he could eat, as he should eat. And Moses said to them, "Let no man leave any of it until morning." But they did not listen to Moses, and some left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and became foul, and Moses was angry with them. And they gathered it morning by morning, every man as much as he should eat, but when the sun grew hot, it would melt. Now it came about on the 6th day that they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one. When all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, then he said to them, "This is what the Lord meant. Tomorrow is a Sabbath observance, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over put aside to be kept until morning." So they put it aside until morning, as Moses had ordered, and it did not become foul, nor was there any worm in it. And Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will be none." And it came about on the 7th day that some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore he gives you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Remain every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day. And the house of Israel named it manna, and it was like coriander seed, white, and its taste was like wafers with honey. Then Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer full of it be kept throughout your generations, that they may see the bread. Let an omer full be kept throughout your generations, that they may see the bread that I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer full of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations." As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. And the sons of Israel ate the manna 40 years, until they came to an inhabited land. They ate the manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is 1/10 of an ephah. When all the congregations of the sons of Israel journeyed by stages from the wilderness of Sin, according to the command of the Lord, and camped at Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water that we may drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and they grumbled against Moses and said, "Why now have you brought us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, "What shall I do to this people? A little more and they will stone me." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Pass before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand your staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he named the place Massah and Meribah, because of the quarrel of the sons of Israel, and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" Then Amalek came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, "Choose men for us and go out, fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will station myself on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." And Joshua did as Moses told him and fought against Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. So it came about when Moses held his hand up that Israel prevailed, and when he let his hand down, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy. Then they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other. Thus his hands were steady until the sun set. So Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this in a book as a memorial and recite it to Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." And Moses built an altar and named it, "The Lord is my banner." And he said, "The Lord has sworn, the Lord will have war against Amalek from generations to generation."
hard time finding that last chord there. It was like, wait a minute, how do I end that? How do I resolve that? And I think that happens a lot of times in the midst of our life, in the midst of struggles, that sometimes it's like, how do I resolve that? But it isn't about us resolving it, okay? If I noticed anything in the reading today, it was this. It isn't about us resolving it. When the people come to Moshe and they say, what'd you bring us out here to die for? Couldn't we have died in Egypt? And he says, why are you guys quarreling with me? You're coming to the wrong person. Coming to the wrong one. Does that mean we don't ever say, God, I feel like I'm dying here? No, that's not what it means. Because I'll be honest, there are times we all feel like we're dying here. And the reality is, in this world, in this earth, we are dying here. We are dying here. Sometimes I wonder if the question wouldn't be better asked this way. Is this my time to come to you? I saw a question in one of the, I heard a question this week, and it was this. If you'd rather die a slave in Egypt than free in the wilderness, then you finish the sentence. If you'd rather die a slave in Egypt than free in the wilderness, then you... And answers can vary. I mean, different ones of us are going to come up with different responses. Maybe then you don't have any faith, or then you don't, whatever. I don't know. For me, the answer was, then you don't understand freedom. Don't understand freedom. If you'd rather die a slave, then you really don't understand freedom. Period. Simple as that. One of the forefathers of this nation, I think it was Thomas Paine, that said, give me liberty or give me death. I could have the wrong person. I don't know. I get, huh? Patrick Henry, yes. Give me liberty or give me death. He understood liberty. He understood freedom. He understood freedom. I'd rather die free than stay a slave. See, there's this place that I think we sometimes don't understand slavery. If Israel, in their having left Egypt, in this place where they come to the sea, and there's this blockade. Wait a minute, where are we going now? Moses, you brought us into a corner, right? What I still find it interesting that God says right at the beginning of this reading that he did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, because even though that was a shorter route, there was a shorter route to get there, but it was going to require war. And he knew they weren't ready for war. So he led them this other way. And where does they end up? In a dead end, with an army coming after them. They're not ready for war. So God knew. And they cry out, did you bring us out here to be slaughtered? Come on, they could have slaughtered us there, I mean, at least... Sometimes I wonder, did they really remember what it was like as slaves? Or had somehow or another that memory been erased as they packed their stuff and got out of there with all of the goods of Egypt? That all of a sudden they... Oh, wait a minute. At least I had food there. At least I got to sleep in a bed every night. I had a house. I had covering. I may have had to kill myself practically during the day. I might have gotten beat by the guys, but at least I knew where my next meal was coming from. I think they forgot about the beatings. I think they forgot about the price. I think they forgot. I don't know. I don't get it. But somehow or another, when they saw the army coming, and they saw the water between them and freedom, something snapped. Something snapped. And Moses said, don't be afraid. Stand firm. You will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. Had he already asked God about it? No, he hadn't. It's another part of this I find interesting. You know, here the king's coming. God has already told Moses, though, as Pharaoh approached. God had already told him, I'm bringing him out. I'm bringing him out. He had told him, I've hardened Pharaoh's heart again, and he's going to come after you. I'm going to take care of it. He'd already told him that. So when the people come to Moses, he already has an answer. The reality is, when something's going on in our lives, God's already told us, right? He tells us. He's already told us that we will face hardships. He's already told us that this life is not going to be that easy. He's already told us all of this. But he's also told us, I will be with you, right? He's told us, I will be with you. I'll be with you through the pain. I'll be with you through the sorrow. I will be with you. I'm the deliverer, not you. Right? That's what he says. And he told Moses, before Pharaoh even shows up with his armies, while they're camped here at the water's edge, I'm going to bring Pharaoh out. But I'm going to take care of it. So when the people begin complaining, what have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we tell you just leave us alone? Let us serve the Egyptians. Come on, it'd be better for us to have served the Egyptians than to die out here. Like I said, I don't think they understood freedom yet. I'm not sure they ever did, but I don't think they understood freedom. And Moses said, don't be afraid, stand firm. You'll see the deliverance the Lord will bring you. And the Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. There's a time for full deliverance. And the Lord said to Moses, what are you calling out to me for? Apparently Moses did not remember what the next step was supposed to be, or he didn't know or something, but the Lord says, why are you crying to me? Tell them to move on. Get going. What are you sitting here for? Maybe because there's some water out there and I don't want to drown? Did you tell me to go? Did I miss something here? I don't know. Sometimes I think we miss something, and sometimes I think we're so busy looking at the circumstance that we don't hear God say go. And he said, raise your staff, stretch it out, divide the water. Come on, do it. You can do this. Because he gave Moshe the authority to do it. Not that Moses had any power to do this in himself. We need to understand that. Okay? Sometimes we come up on our own places. We've brought our own selves to this position. And we say, okay, God, part the water. And he's going, I didn't bring you here. But God... And he may have to give us different directions. He may tell us what to do. He may not. Sometimes the situations we find ourselves in are situations of our own making, right? So, but I do know this. Even when it's a situation of our own making, God is still faithful, and he is still with us, and he is still there. Sometimes the hardships we face are simply because we've made dumb choices. We've made bad choices. And if you make a bad choice, there are consequences to that. But sometimes, what we forget is this. Even when I have made a bad choice, God says, I'll work all things out for good to those who love me and those who are called according to my purpose. So even if I've messed up royally, when I come to that place where I submit it to him and say, okay, God, help. God, help. Do I backtrack? Do I go forward? Do I need to do a sidestep? What do I need to do, Lord? If I got myself into this, you need to tell me how to get out of it.
Shalom.
You need to tell me, Lord. You need to tell me, because I don't know. I'm looking at this water. I'm looking at this whole thing. God, we've gotten here. And sometimes God will just flat out part the water. And all we've got to do is keep going forward. Keep going forward. If God told you to go that way, and he hasn't changed the direction, go that way.
Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh.
Go that way. Because if that's what he wants you to do and you stop, then you have a chance to look around and get scared, right? You know, there are times in our lives, and I, to be honest, I live this stuff. It's one of those hard things that it's hard to explain to people, but when you begin to teach the Word, when you begin to step in a position like this, you end up living through this stuff. And if you're not living through it, then you're lying to yourself, or you're totally just heady about the study of the Word of God. You're just not recognizing it. Because the reality is we live through this stuff. Sometimes we come up on these places and it's like, God, He says, keep going. Just keep going. Put one foot in front of the other. I'm going to take care of it. Put one foot in front of the other. When we come to the Brit Hadassah, the writings and the apostolic writings, when we come into the book of Hebrews, it talks about this episode for the Israelites as being likened to our baptism, or being likened to baptism. See, God redeemed them. He pulled them out of Egypt, but there was another step. The enemy came after them hard, and he said, now go through the water. And they go through the water and get to the other side. And when you go through the water, what happened to the enemy? What happened to the enemy?
They were following.
The enemy tried following. But the enemy can't follow through God's washing. When God washes us, when God takes us through water, the enemy can't follow after that. God washes that away. Sometimes we don't recognize the importance of baptism. We think it's a simple little thing, you know. It's a picture of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. Yes, it is that. Absolutely it is that. But this is also a picture. And it's a picture of this as well. That God came against the enemy, said, come out of her, choose me, come out to me. We choose to follow out. We obeyed. We came out. And then there's this place of, not just is He going to deliver us and take us out of Egypt, He's going to take us out of sin, but He is going to wash the power of that sin away from us. And He does that. The problem is too many of us don't recognize that He's washed it away. And we're just like the Israelites. We're here, they've seen this great move of God. They've gone through the water. They've declared the praises of God. They've said, the Lord is my strength and my song. He's my salvation. He's my God. I'm going to praise Him. They hear Moshe declare, and they sing it out, that He's going to bring them to the mountain of our inheritance. He's taking us home, taking us where we're supposed to be. God, you reign forever. The Lord will reign forever and ever. God, you've established it. It's done. Right? And very next thing that happens is they start moving forward, and they stop at a place where the water is bitter. Oh, Moses, what are we supposed to do? We should have been left in Egypt. We could have died there comfortably. At least we had water to drink. They grumbled. Instead of coming and saying, okay, He washed the enemy away. Now what are you going to do, God? I need water. In excitement, not now, in excitement, they came in grumbling and complaining. And I think sometimes we as believers come through this place of, we see the move of God. We have the salvation come. We go through the water. We watch the power of the enemy get washed away from us. And we come to our first place of testing, that first time, and instead of saying, okay, God, what are you going to do? What are you going to do now? We go, I can't do this. You know, you guys know I've done some work in recovery programs and with people that are in recovery from different things and everywhere from illnesses to addictions, and primarily the addictions is what I'm thinking of right now, in the sense that when we first give an addiction up, when it's done under the power of God, there's often an absolute freedom from that addiction for a while. I've seen it. I've experienced it. Wow, Hey, I made it a whole week without a cigarette and I didn't even have any reactions. Yay! And all of a sudden something happens and it's like, oh, gotta have a cigarette. Or to the alcoholic, I gotta have a glass of wine, a beer, I need a shot of whiskey, I need whatever it is, whatever that addiction is. When God does a deliverance, and I've seen it happen, I remember it when I was a kid seeing it happen more than once. Someone would stagger into the church during a meeting. They would come on their faces before God. I mean, they're drunk. They walk in the backs out of it, and they get up sober. God delivered them. I saw it. But then there comes a point where they come to bitter water. You see, God delivers us in the moment. But when we come to bitter water comes the testing of our deliverance, the testing of our faith. When I come to that first bitter water, am I going to look at God and say, God, I watched what you did to the Egyptians. I saw what you did to Pharaoh. I know where those chariots are. I know you have taken away the power and the sting of the enemy. You've taken it away. He promised it. So God, now that I'm feeling this thirst, now that it feels a little bitter, it's not as comfortable as it was, what are you going to do? You know, there's a difference between a child saying, Mama, I'm hungry, and a child going, I'm hungry, right? There's a difference. We know the difference. As parents, we know the difference. God knows the difference. And we forget that it's okay to be hungry. By the way, it's okay to be thirsty sometimes. It's okay. It doesn't hurt us at all. And they came and they complained. And this becomes the first place of testing in the Word. And that's what it gets called. It gets called testing. The water at Marah, bitter water, a place of testing, goes on. And God says, how long are you not going to obey? And God makes a decree and a law with them right then and there. At the waters that were bitter, that God made sweet. He made it drinkable when Moses looked at him and asked him. See, we can ask or we can demand and complain. Moses, God showed him what to throw in the water. He showed him how to do it, and he did it. And God made a law with them, a decree and a law. This is where he tested them. He said, if you'll listen to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right, if you'll pay attention to the commands, keep the decrees, I won't bring on you the diseases I brought on the Egyptians. You saw what I did there. You saw what happened to them. You saw when they disobeyed me. You saw all that. You obey me, none of that will follow you. None of it. And they camped near the water. And when they set out again, almost immediately, going through the desert, they began grumbling again. If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. It's chapter 16, verse 3. If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt, where we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But no, you brought us to the desert to starve this entire assembly to death. Do you think God wants to starve his people? No. I'm starving and it's all your fault because you made me come out here. Instead of saying, God, you brought deliverance. You got us out of Egypt. You got us through the water. You gave us clean water to drink when we were thirsty. God, I'm a little hungry. What? Now what? I'm a little hungry. They didn't understand little hungry. They were immediately starving. Have you noticed that? Yeah, you know, we kind of joked about some of the kids being drama queens, you know, and drama queen, everything's extreme, catastrophizing everything. That's exactly what they're doing here. Hey, Lord, we didn't get breakfast. It's almost lunchtime. Okay, well, we really don't have anything yet. Well, maybe by dinner. I'm hungry. Lord, I'm hungry. No, we're starving to death. Miss one meal. I'm starving. I feel sorry for them, and yet at the same time I look at it and go, but God. And God brings them something they've never seen before. In fact, it's so different that when it comes up in the ground and they see it on the ground, they go, what's that? And that's what the word manna literally means. What is it? That's what it means, literally. Manna means what?
Yahweh.
What? What's this stuff on the ground and you expect me to eat that? Okay. But then God explains He tells us what it tastes like. And it was there. And it was there every single day. Except one day. God gave him a command about the Sabbath day. And they tested that too. They tested everything. Have you ever had a strong-willed child? Have you ever had one that, I remember reading The Strong-Willed Child, the book, and going, this touches the surface barely of what I'm dealing with my kid, because my kid was beyond strong-willed. But the reality is we are all strong-willed before God. They were strong-willed before God, and God was teaching them, and God was working with them, and He didn't give up on them. And Moses didn't give up on them. And when they wanted meat, He brought them quail. And when they needed bread, He brought them manna. Even if they didn't recognize what it was at first, when they ate it, it was good. And He taught them the day-to-day dependence on Him. It's one day at a time. You can't hold the manna over. It doesn't work. Unless God has said to. And on the 6th day, there's enough to take care of the 7th day. This becomes a pattern that God gives the people. In the 6th, I give you enough for the 7th. In the 6th, I'll give you enough for the 7th. But you got to deal with the 6th. Got to do it right. And save it. There's this place that we don't always do that. And so now we come up to the 7th and we're hungry. But don't worry. Bread's coming in the morning. And it's okay to be hungry. Bread's coming in the morning. It's okay. God is going to do it. He is going to take care of it. It says the Lord told them to take some and put it in a jar. Just take some and keep it. Why? Because God knows our memory. He knows how we remember things. And I've said this over and over and over again in the book of Revelation. It says they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. So they overcame by the deliverance of God. There comes another step in it where we have to do the testimony. We have to remember what God has done. Because if I don't remember what God has done, I'm going to be just like them, and I'm going to say it would be better I died in Egypt. If that's what I remember, that's what I'll remember. But if I remember what God has done, and I remind myself of what God has done, then I'm going to continue to see victory. I will continue to have bread every day. I will continue to have the quail come when I ask for meat. I will continue to have my needs met. The way I want them to? Not necessarily. Is it going to look like what I think it's going to look like? Probably not. I mean, they come out to the desert again and they quarrel again about water, right? They quarrel again about water. Moses again says, what are you quarreling with me for? Why are you testing God? Why don't you believe this yet? Haven't you got it yet? Chapter 17 again. Verse 3, the people were thirsty for water, and they grumbled against Moses, and they said, why did you bring us out of Egypt to make us and our children and our livestock all die of thirst? And Moses cries out to the Lord, what am I to do with these people? I don't blame him. There are times I want to do that too. God, what am I supposed to do with all of these? Look at all these demands. God, what do I do? And God told Moses, walk ahead of them. Take some of the elders. Take your staff in your hand, the one that you struck the Nile with. And go, and I'll stand before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and the water will come out of it for the people to drink. So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and because they tested God. The question was, is God among us or not? Is God taking care of us or not? I have that question sometimes too. Is God taking care of us or not? Is God taking care of us or not? I've seen him do marvelous things, and yet sometimes in the middle of the night it says, God taking care of me or not? God, what are you doing? I don't understand it. What did I do wrong? Did I miss it? Did I forget what the instruction was? Were we supposed to have gone left and I went right? Am I supposed to pull my staff out over this water and you're going to part it? Or am I supposed to take it and hit the rock? Or am I supposed to just stand back and let the manna fall? What, Lord? Or am I supposed to, is there something else? I want you to notice something about the healings that Yeshua did in the apostolic writings. And notice something about the way God does this here. He doesn't repeat himself. He does not repeat himself. He doesn't. When God does a miraculous healing, it's unique. It's different. Yeshua healed blind eyes, right? One time he spit in the ground and put mud on the guy's eyes and told him to go wash it off. One time he spoke. That's all it took. But 3 or 4 different times he healed someone's blind eyes. And he did not do it the same way twice. It was different every time. Why? Because the cause may have been different. I don't know. But what I do know is this. If I need a miracle of God, I need to ask him what to do now. I can't just say, hey God, you did it this way then. So if you did it this way then, I'm going to do this and this and this and expect you to do this. Okay? Because God doesn't, God's too creative to have to repeat himself. When he parts the waters, Moses holds out his rod. And he strikes the waters and they part. Okay? The next time he parts the waters, and he does it again before they go into the promised land, that's not how he does it. God doesn't part the waters going into the promised land the way he parted the Red Sea. Parting the waters in the promised land required the priests to pick up the ark, which they have by then, and actually put their feet in the water. So one time he parts the waters by striking him with the rod of Moses, the rod of God. The next time it's by the priests literally walking into the water. This time he gets them water. One time he takes the bitter water and he turns it drinkable by throwing a branch in it, a tree in it. Next time they're thirsty, he has Moses strike the rock. Now later on, God tells Moses to speak to a rock, and Moses strikes it. And Moses is judged for that. And who am I to tell God that wasn't fair? Obviously, God knows better than we do. God doesn't repeat himself when he does the miraculous. So we can't look and see and ask God, okay, I did this, 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 and this then, so I'm going to do this, 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 and this now, and we'll get through this. It comes back to this whole thing. God, what do you want me to do? It comes back to Moses saying, God, now what? Sometimes we get the water turned sweet. Sometimes we get the manna on the ground, the quail at night. Sometimes we get to this place where God strikes the rock and the water starts coming out. And it's said, according to rabbinical tradition, that this rock of water followed them all through the desert during all their time of wanderings. That rock of water followed them. And it becomes called Miriam's well, because they're not thirsty again until Miriam dies. Rabbinical tradition is that Miriam with her tambourine and dance, went before this rock. And this rock gave water to them for the entire time of their travel until she died. And then it dried up. That's rabbinic tradition. I don't know that. But I don't know it didn't happen. I know that God gives them all these things, and then the enemy, another enemy, comes after them, the Amalekites. The Amalekites attacked Israel. And it is said in other places that they attacked from the back, so they went after the weak ones first. The enemy goes after the weak ones. He always goes after the weak ones. And Moses saw them and said, Joshua, get the team, go get them. And Moses prays. Don't tell me we don't need intercessors. We've got to have intercessors. Moses, as long as Moses prayed, Joshua was winning. When Moses put his hands down, when he got weak, couldn't pray anymore, couldn't hold his hands up anymore, they started losing. So it took 2 others to come alongside and hold his hands up. You know, I got to ask you a really weird question, okay? How heavy is this cup? Really not very heavy. I can hold it up here easily, right? It's not that heavy. Give me 2 hours holding it up and ask me how heavy it is. I'll tell you a different story. What's easy to lift at one time, the burdens that we have, sometimes they're there. They get heavier. And sometimes, even though it looks like it should be a burden we should be able to bear, we need someone else to come along and help us. Okay. Moses prayed for the people. It was his role. It was what he was supposed to do. He held out his hands, and there came a point that even Moses needed help. And Aaron and Hur, who we really don't know anything else about. We know about Aaron, but we never really know anything else about her. Came and hold up his hands. And they built an altar when they won the war. And they wrote it down to remember. The Lord is my banner, for hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord. The Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Our next festival is the festival of Purim. It is said that Haman, who is the enemy in that story, is descendant of the Amalekites. The Amalekites don't give up. They constantly go after the weak ones. The enemy of our soul has no strength. He's been washed away. But there are still things that will come after us. We still seem to have to fight. There's still things we need to win. There's still trust we have to build. There's still a place where we have to ask the Lord, is this the time that I fight? Is this the time that I stand? Is this the time that I walk? Is this the time that I go pick up what's on the ground? What is it you want me to do? And it's a daily thing. It's a situation-specific thing. I don't know what you're fighting with. I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know where you're at in terms of your faith level. I don't know if you go back to that place like so many, I should have died in Egypt. I wished I'd have just died in Egypt. Why did he even try this walk of faith? Well, it's because God has plans for you. And let me encourage you. It's not better to be a slave to sin. It is not better. For the alcoholic, it's not better to go back and have that drink. You know? Was it one of the things that I've heard Clay say, and I really greatly appreciate this in him, is, yeah, I've got one more drink in me. I could drink again. Don't know if I have one more sober in me, though. Don't know if I could do that again. So I'm not going to take that drink that I know I could drink because I don't know that I can get sober again. Whatever it is that we fall victim to, it's not better to go back to it. It's not better to be a slave. It's not better to live in sin. It is better to live and walk in freedom. And if you don't know that yet, you don't know freedom yet. Don't understand what that freedom gives you.
So I challenge us all, when we come against that brick wall, when we come up against that water and we've got the enemy coming, or when we come to water that we think is going to be good and we take a taste of it and just not any good and you're thirsty, when we come to that place where we've missed breakfast and I'm not so sure about dinner, when we come to that place, we need to say, God, help. And not in a nasty way, not in an angry way, not in a complaining way, but in a way that says, God, you brought me this far. You will bring me farther. This will be what you want it to be. Father, you're going to take care of the enemy. Father, you're going to protect me. Father, it's you. Father God, I ask that we would remember this, that we would not forget, that we would put our altars in place in our lives, that we would remind ourselves of those times that you have delivered us, those times that you have done for us, those times that you have stepped in supernaturally, those times when you have stepped in naturally even by using someone in a natural way, but that's still you. It's still you because you control that. Father, help us remember the hard, not that we remember it being hard, but that we remember what you have done. That we may look at what you've done and what you are doing, and that we may look forward to where you're bringing us, to where you're taking us. And Father, if we have misstepped, if we have not understood, I ask for correction and redirection, because you love us. And you will love us. And we are your children, and we depend upon you. We depend upon you. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, our Lord and our Savior. Amen and amen. The Lord bless you.
The Lord bless you.
And keep you.
And keep you.
The Lord make his face to shine upon you. The Lord bless you.
The Lord bless you.
And keep you.
And keep you.
The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and be gracious unto you, and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up,
The Lord lift up
his countenance on you and give you peace. Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Aleichem. I have out in the foyer a proposed schedule, and I say proposed because there may be some changes on exact dates, so pay attention, watch for that, of the festivals throughout the year, beginning with Purim. Purim is on a Thursday this year, the day. I don't know if we're going to gather on the Wednesday before or on the Thursday night yet. Pesach, the first night of Pesach, or the first day actually, begins at sunset on Friday, April 3rd, which is Good Friday. So it's going to be interesting how we work this out. So pay attention to that. Also, and these are the primary festivals as we celebrate them. And this one is set up, these are the Birkat HaKodeshes, the months, the times that we gather. And it's set up so you can literally, actually this is a smaller page, it's more like that. This is 2 on a page. And you can just put it on your refrigerator. You can pay attention to what days we're gathering. Our next Birkat HaKodesh is February 14th. We'll be learning about the month of Adar. That's the next Birkat HaKodesh. And you can just follow down and check it off as we go through the year, so that we all are on the same page and all are planning the same. I have finished the totaling of the donations for this year, and we'll get those letters out in the next day and a half. So if you've been giving donations and you need the receipt for your taxes, don't worry, they are coming. I did the best I could. We're kind of running on short manpower, but God's faithful.